Welcome to the Selling Show, where we unpack, repack, and break down exactly how top experts sell their ideas, their value, and their services. This is your host, David Newman, and you are in the right place if you want better clients, bigger deals, and higher fees. She's here. I begged, I cajoled, I had to bribe her agent, the amazing Carrie Wilkerson of carriewilkerson.com. Welcome to the show.
Hey, thanks, David, for having me.
So you are such a rock star. I'm not even sure I told you this. We saved some of the juicy stuff for when we turn on the microphones.
Okay.
This must have been 15 years ago.
Oh, no.
I somehow ended up on your email list.
Okay.
And back in the day, it was, Carrie Wilkerson, Barefoot Executive.
Barefoot Executive, yep.
Like 2007, 2008, you were on Twitter. You're one of the first people on Twitter. And so we were like tweeting and I was retweeting. And like you had this whole empire going, which has only grown and magnified and multiplied since then. But I'm an OG fan. I'm an OG fan.
I didn't know that. I didn't know that. But I don't like it when I hear stories like that because then that ages us.
I was 12 and I believe you were 9, but
something
that's
like
okay.
That. Yeah. But you know what? That just shows our stay power. I love that. And and it also gives people permission to evolve their brand. Barefoot Executive was a great brand. However, with the widespread adaptation and mainstream of social media, it became kind of a creepy brand because of all the people with feet things.
Oh, wow.
So the more mainstream it got, the more weird messages we got and the more requests for pictures.
Funny.
Yeah. So we have a big brand. This just happened yesterday. True story. Have a big picture on our dining room wall. Our first branded family picture is Barefoot Executive. And it was all of us from like our ankles down. It was the cutest. We were denim. We're all bare feet. But it's because I was still protecting the kids' identity online.
Yes.
So we all had nicknames like Broadway Barefoot, who was 3 and now is studying Broadway in college, and Baby Barefoot. Anyway, so I have this barefoot family picture on the wall, which I love. But one of my girls the other day said, "Mom, can we put the foot fetish pictures away? When our friends come over, it's a little creepy."
Wow, that's funny.
Never thought of that, but those were the days, man. But we've got some longevity. We're like Dolly Parton of internet marketing. That's what we are.
That's it. That's totally it. So for the people that don't know, tell us the Carrie Wilkerson story. What were some of the professional adventures along the way that brought you to the work that you're doing today?
I was a very normal, average kid raised in a military house, moved a lot, baby of the family for 17 years, the only girl. Then my dad retired from the military. We stayed in one place, but then he went into the ministry. So what he needed was a good business coach. Maybe that's what planted the seed in my mind. So he's going to help these people make money. Anyway, went to college, married my college sweetheart, very young age. As a matter of fact, I was a baby when we got married. And I was just planning on doing music. I always knew I would be on stage, David, but I really thought I was going to sing or do something ministry related because that's what I knew. That was my worldview, right? Our dreams change as our view expands. So I got my degree in education. And interestingly enough, I did not finish with a music degree. I finished with mass communication. Prophetically. I then went into education and did journalism and yearbook and newspaper. And that's where I discovered, because we had to generate our own funding, there was no budget for us. I discovered marketing and I loved it. And I was so good at it just innately. I'd never had a class. Nobody had ever taught me. And my husband, who does have an MBA, ironically, said to me, "You're so good at making everybody else money. Why don't you make us some?" So he kind of planted that seed. We adopted 2 siblings in a very short time after. So I retired from teaching to be at home with them. And I was the world's most amazing stay-at-home mom for about 6 weeks. And then I said, I need to be bringing in some money. There's this new thing called the internet. And I'm college educated. I'm pretty smart about some stuff. I think we could put 2 and 2 together and make some money. And that was the whole business plan, David. I did not have a dream or a goal or a vision. I just wanted to be home with these 2 kids that came from a hard place. And I wanted them never to doubt who their caretaker was or who chose them. So that's how me seeking out my first business was born. I went to the library. You remember those? Checked out a stack of books. I said, you've got to have something on how to start a business. You've got to have that wasn't like, brick and mortar. And I mean, there was just such a dearth of resources. Is that even the right word? There was
It
such a
is.
deficit. And
Yeah.
so I got into direct sales like a lot of people do for their first thing because it had a low startup cost and great personal growth. And that's where I got. So I already had my communication skills. I had learned a love for marketing. And this is where I got hooked on personal growth. So Zig Ziglar, Brian Tracy, the whole personal growth crowd. And I loved it, fell in love with it, and changed my life. So I combined my sales with marketing, and I created in 2001 an online, what I believe to be the first virtual services company using virtual assistants. We had virtual assistants before we knew to call them that. I worked with a staff of up to 15 people across the nation, some still I have not met in person, using low speed dial-up internet and servers, and created a service-based business with desktop publishing, created our first multi-million-dollar business, sold that, created a website at the beginning of the recession called The Barefoot Executive. And my goal was, because that was my husband's nickname for me, my goal was to be a resource for people because it felt like such a lonely space at that point. I wanted to connect people with attorneys that knew about small business and accountants that understood our business. And I did some training on autoresponders and email services because people didn't know you weren't supposed to just email from your inbox, and how to process credit card payments. We had a subscription-based business with 1,700 subscribers a month that my husband hand processed because we were searching for the best solution. And in doing all that, I just wanted to be a connector and a resource, which interestingly enough, in the year we are now, that's kind of still what I do. That's kind of still who I am at my very core. I'm relationship driven, connection driven, and resource driven. And I just tied it with marketing and mass communication. So I started doing lots of interviews. People are like, what are you doing? How are you staying home? What does a girl like you know about internet marketing? I didn't even know what internet marketing was or that it was a thing. I was just using these tools to grow my actual business, and started getting asked to speak. People would look me up in the phone book. You remember those? Phone book. Call my landline and say, we probably can't afford you, but we would like to pay you this amount of money to come speak to us. I'm like, hey, I've been paid to shut up my whole life. Somebody wants to pay me to talk. And so that's how I started speaking. It's bizarre, but it's true. And so I just did what I did until I was really, really good at it. And then people wanted to know. And then I got good at talking about it. And so then it led to coaching, and never had a coaching class or certification or any of those things. I'm not saying those are bad. I'm just saying that it was just a very innate skill to me because of my teaching background, because of my ministry background with my family. Also being the only girl with 4 boys. I mean, there's a lot of coaching involved in my house. So that's what led to where we are now. We evolved to the Carrie Wilkerson brand a few years ago because people were starting to say, hey, we want the barefoot girl to speak. And so one of my mentors, Michael Hyatt, Mentors and Friends, Michael Hyatt said, Carrie, it's time to use your name. I know that you were trying to just keep the brand and be a little bit behind the scenes, but they want you front and center. So it's time to do it. So we spent a couple of years really doing that. And we've had some stay power, and we've dialed it up and we've dialed it down to respect our priorities and the ages and stages of our kids. We've got 4 now. And I'm really proud of the reputation I have in the industry. Honestly, really proud of the credibility that I have and the approachability that I have, but also the marketability. And so I'll never say I'm a guru or one of those statusy people, but I'm kind of maybe the Meg Ryan of the online business space. Everybody kind of feels like they know her. I'm about 1 degree separated from everybody. I know where everybody's bodies are buried and all the skeletons in everybody's closets. So call me if you want the dirt. But I love business and I love business people. And so that's what I do is I love on business people and I love their business and I help them look at things a different way, I think.
Wow. So let's kind of unpack a little bit of the current empire, because I think a lot of experts and especially a lot of speakers, they say the first thing I have to do is I have to write a book. And you had this Barefoot Executive brand back in the day, way before the book came out, right? Because the book was 2011, something like that?
Yeah, we established
so you
the
were
Barefoot.
working on this for years, and you built up the audience and the following and the subscriber base. And then you said, now I'm ready for a book.
No.
Oh no?
The publisher came to me on Twitter. They private messaged me Thomas Nelson did. Joel Miller, who was the business acquisitions editor at Thomas Nelson, private messaged me on Twitter and said, "We love your brand. We've been fans for years. It's time for your book.
Well, there you go.
Would you do a proposal for us?" So that's how I met Michael Hyatt. We started following each other on Twitter. We became mutual fans, and he published my book. And now they're HarperCollins, I think is what it is. But
Right.
I built the audience and the expertise first, and then the speaking and the books came for me.
I think anyone who jumps into writing the book first, they don't have the track record, they don't have the experience, they don't have the expertise. They're like, yeah, let's put the book together and let's see who comes. If you look at my theory on this, you look at every major best-selling nonfiction business book, they did not write the book first. They built the business first. And then anywhere from 3 to 10 years in, that's when the book came out. And that's how you sell books. You don't try and say, here's a book, let's find an audience.
Right.
Hey, let's develop an audience and the business, and then let's write the book that supports that audience and that business.
Yeah. And speaking, I would say, is the same way. But you can have some skills at speaking, but you don't have anything to say until you have some expertise.
Yeah.
So I have just always maintained you have to do the thing first. Stop saying, oh, I want to be a public speaker. What are you going to speak about? Well, you're going to end up speaking about everybody else's stuff. And I could name some really high profile names of people that just regurgitate everybody else's stuff, but that wouldn't be very kind. But the truth is, if you want to have stay power and credibility and be asked again and again and again and not be a flash in the pan or yesterday's it girl, you have to really know what you're talking about, which means you have to do the thing first and then write about the thing and then speak about the thing or speak the book. But it doesn't start with, ooh, I want to write a book. Now, I did share a story with you that I'm releasing a trilogy. When I was a little kid, I read the Chronicles of Narnia and they were already all out. So my big brother had gotten the box set and I loved it so much. And I said, someday I'm going to have a box set. I'm going to write a box set, right? But I was a story writer. So I kind of thought it would probably be fiction or memoir type stories or whatever. And then I just kind of filed it away. But I never started my career saying, how do I write this box set first so that then I can be famous? It was never that. It was, how do I make some money to bridge the gap between the month, and the money so I can stay home with my kids? How can I do that? I didn't have any Zuckerberg big dream. I just wanted to fill the need of the cash at our house first. And then I fell in love with who I was serving. I fell in love with business owners and I wanted to free them up to do what they were best at by doing what they weren't best at, which was what I was best at, and that's kind of how business works. You find a need and you fill it. You don't write the book unless you're a fiction writer. Now, fiction writing is its own thing and it's a whole different animal than nonfiction writing. But yeah, don't try to start your career with the book unless you have a great story like our friend Allison Levine, who climbed, Everest and led a team up there, or Carrie, who flew the first fighter jet in, the military. If you have that kind of a story, that's one thing you can relate it to business. But everybody else, we got to do the thing. We got to know the business principles we teach. Patrick Leoncini had to be a consultant before he could write about consultants. He couldn't say, oh, I think I'll write a book about consulting so I can get consulting clients and start my consulting business.
Right.
We cannot do it in reverse order. We have to know what we're talking about and we have to put in some of the yards.
Hang on. Let's back up the truck. Beep, 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 beep. Listen, I have a brand new sales book out there. You got to get your hands on it. It is awesome. It is amazing. It is fantastic. It is useful, practical, actionable, and a ton of bonuses are waiting for you over at doitselling.com. Grab your copy right now and grab all the bonuses, goodies, companion tools, and downloads that go with the book. You'll love it. I guarantee it. Let's talk about sales and selling, because so people are very tempted. Like you said, I want to start by being a public speaker. I want to start by writing a book. No one has ever said, I don't believe, in the history of professional services entrepreneurship, the first thing I need to do, Carrie Wilkerson, I need to learn how to sell. And you and I both know that actually the first thing that people need to learn is how to sell. Because if you can't sell it, then you can't deliver it, speak it, coach it, consult it, train it. How did you learn sales? And then fast forward, because I have benefited so much from your amazing sales wisdom and sales insights and sales psychology. Talk about how you came to the sales expertise that you have and what so many solopreneurs get wrong or are in denial about sales.
I think that intrinsically, we all know about sales. We just forget, we have this crazy trauma block about it when the money comes to our pocket. So what do I mean by that? I mean, we are taught to sell from a very early age. When you say, where's your sales experience come from? Listen, I was the baby of the family, a very loud family, very spicy family, a very male-oriented patriarchal family. If you think I didn't have some sales skills early on, I did. And also communication skills had to be heard, had to be, valid and valued. And so I think that's where they start. If you've dated, if you've been in a relationship or the best friend circle or in high school or had a teacher you were trying to convince to accept a late assignment, you have sales skills. And we forget what skills it is we're using when all of a sudden there's money involved for ourselves. So I gained those sales skills the same way everybody did, by persuading my parents or my brothers or my teachers or whoever. When we would move over and over again, like, that's a hard life. I persuaded people that I was worth being friends with, even though I just got there and hadn't been there since kindergarten. My family was a very paycheck to paycheck, barely kind of family. And so I was just kind of an intuitive kid that didn't want to ask for money for trips and things. So I was the biggest fundraiser at the school. When there was a band fundraiser or a choir fundraiser or a theater fundraiser, like, I was on it, because that's how I knew I could create opportunity for myself. So I could sell candy bars, popcorn. I mean, you name it, if there was a goal attached to it. So then what happens is we all have these experiences, but then we get to our career and we think, ooh, I don't want to do sales as a career. Listen, mister, the reason you've survived this far is sales. Everybody. So I think if it helps your brain, just rename it persuasion or survival or whatever. But sales is really, I think, conversation and connection with people to find mutual solutions that are palatable for each other. I've never said that before. Does it make sense? Like, I think it's you and I talking about, do I have something you need? Can I help you with what you have? And then what's the exchange for that? Is it, and I believe that compensation comes in many, many forms. Like, it can come in swapping mailing to email list. It can come in the form of actual barter. It can come in the form of, if I come on your podcast, it can come in the form of, like, you share me with your audience. Like, that's a form of compensation as well. One thing I tell speakers is never, ever, ever speak for free. There's 5 forms of compensation, and you have to at least have one, if not all 5, when you're speaking. So I think the problem with sales is that, number 1, we get mentally hung up on it. Number 2, we may not be clear enough on our value to other people. Like, what are we actually solving for them? Are we clear on that? Or are we trying to solve too many things because we're just desperate for a check, just desperate to do? And then, are you communicating that value to them effectively in some psychological ways to help them make the decision? We have so many decisions we make now that a lot of us resist decisions. Now, that's never been my problem. I make a lot of decisions, and quickly, which is probably why I'm good at what I do, because I'm very decisive. The people I've worked with and my family will say, Carrie can make 5 wrong decisions and already have fixed it in the time it takes most people to make the one decision.
Yes, so important.
And that's okay with me. And does it cost a little more to fix a bad decision? Sometimes, but I'm still moving forward faster than you, who has 8 paint stripes painted on the wall waiting for the sun to set so you can see how it looks in all the different shades of light. My house is already painted and I flipped it by the time you've decided on your wall color, sister. So, I think sales is being able to communicate and helping them come to a decision point, not trickery, not fakery, not hype or arm twisting, but helping them with the decision. And a lot of times I refer to, like, a dating relationship. If you're dating somebody, you had a good time, but then after the 3rd or 4th date, they still haven't kissed you because they're still trying to decide, or they're so worried about that rejection. Like, then you start saying, well, what's wrong with me? Do they not like me? And they start questioning. when sometimes we just got to lean in. You got to lean in either for the kiss or the slap. But the mediocrity and the lukewarm and the indecision leads nowhere. It doesn't do either side any favors.
It's so funny that you say this. Hesitation and indecision, I think, are the two big enemies of a successful entrepreneur. When you say, hey, it costs a little bit more to fix a wrong decision, I would rather make 5 wrong decisions, get the data, find the right decision, and then move in the right direction. But staying stuck at the crossroads, I have no idea. I mean, people do this a lot, and we have to cajole them and coax them and smack them around so that they don't do that. I do want to go back. I want to back up the truck because you said something where I'm sure there's some brilliance hiding. And maybe it was an open loop that you left in there intentionally. But I'm going to back up the truck. It sounds like this. Beep, 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 beep. 5 forms of payment every time you speak. Please tell us, what are the 5 forms?
Yeah, absolutely. And also, I think you're going to put in the show notes like a link where they can grab the PDF download.
Yes.
5 ways, never speak for free again. And let me tell you why the psychology behind this. Because when we think we speak for free, then we have a hard time charging.
Yes.
We say, oh, I'm going to speak for free 100 times. And, and I know some speaker teachers that say that, go speak for free a lot. They don't mean speak for free. They really don't. They mean don't speak for cash, but you have to gain compensation in other ways. That's for your own psychology as well as for the sake of the audience. No audience wants to hear a free speaker. Write that down. Nobody wants to hear the free speaker. Nobody. But they do want to know that the speaker has been well paid. Oh my gosh, she must have something to say because she's been well paid. So if you guys want to grab the download, you absolutely can. Okay, off the top of my head, the 5 forms, they typically all start with C. Number 1 is cash, obviously. If you're at a point that you can charge cash, great. That's my favorite form of currency is cash. Number 2, sometimes when you're starting out, you are speaking for content, meaning, they're going to have a high quality videographer there, or they have a great podcast, or I'm going to be able to use the assets from this. So sometimes it's for content. If you're new in the game or you want to rub shoulders or have some credibility from other big players, sometimes you speak for credibility to share the stage with somebody. So I've shared the stage with John Maxwell and Zig Ziglar and, all the names. Some of those things I was paid in cash. Some of those things I was paid in another form we'll talk about in a minute. And then some of those I was paid in credibility because of their testimonial or that photo or whatever, that poster. Les Brown, you name it, all of them. So sometimes it's credibility. 1 is contacts. Maybe you get paid with the database of who is there, or everybody can opt into your thing from there so that you can follow up with your actual offer and nurture sequence or whatever that looks like, getting them in your sphere. I think it was Dean Jackson that you and I heard say this. So many people are worried about getting their name out there when really you should be worried about getting the right people's name in here. And so a lot of people go, exposure. So people will start recognizing my name. A lot of people recognize my name and that still doesn't pay my mortgage.
Amen.
But when I bring their names into the fold, into the cattle pen and shut the gate, then I can start branding them with the C-dub, right? Yeah. So that's when you're speaking for contacts. And then the last one would be contracts, which means you're selling from stage. You're moving them to a product or a program or books, tapes, etc. So my favorite is a combination of all of them.
I love that so much.
Yeah. So never speak free again. Promise me that you guys will never, ever speak free again. Also read David's book on this. This is not something that I am an expert in. It's just something that I feel really strongly about my clients not doing a whole bunch of free things because they will leverage your vanity and say, you'll get good exposure. You have to be good at closing on those forms of compensation.
Right, exactly. And in the speaker circles that you and I travel in, the joke is you can die from exposure. You can
overexposure will kill you.
Speak for exposure. No, you can die from exposure. You need the 5 C's. You need the 5 C's.
Yes, you do. Yes.
So tell me a little bit about, we talked about pricing, value. When people come into our world, coaching, consulting, training, they might be like a corporate refugee. They just stepped out of a high-level role in corporate, maybe even in their corporate role. They've done some coaching and mentoring of their team members. They have done some speaking on behalf of the company for which they didn't get paid. They come out and it's this brave new world, and they have no idea about pricing, fees, and being in touch with the value that they deliver. So what's your recommendation? Someone's just setting up their shingle as a brand new, seasoned professional, but brand new entrepreneur of their expertise. How should we think about pricing?
Yeah. So the first thing you have to think is you have been paid for this before. It was included in your compensation package and your career. That would be another C, is if you're paid as part of your salary. So I don't want you coming out of that situation saying, oh, I've never spoken for money before. Oh, you absolutely have. It's included on the line item that they say, and other tasks as deemed necessary by the supervisor, right? And David, I say that, and I don't want people to go, mindset, but it is an important thing to recognize, because when you say I've only spoken for free before, it's very disempowering. And that's not true. If you're coming, somebody tell Walt Disney, let's say Walt Disney were still here, and all of a sudden somebody wants him to come speak. Was he going to come and say, oh, I've never spoken for a fee before? Yeah, you have. So first, get that thought out of your head. It's just no longer part of your salary package. The second thing I would say, and this is the big industry secret, is that speaking fees are entirely, totally, and utterly made up. You pull it out of the freaking air. You do. When I started speaking, when that infamous first phone call came and they said, oh, we looked up your landline. We've heard you all over the place. We probably can't afford you. This is our budget. Would you come speak for us? I didn't know what to tell them. So I happened to be friends in a networking group at that point with somebody whose husband was the president of the NSA. And so I said, would he be willing to jump on and we had met before, but I said, would he be willing to jump on a call with me? And he said, it's about time you started speaking. We've been wanting you to. And I said, I don't know how to charge. I really don't know. He said, Carrie, it's made up. You basically decide how much does it cost to get me away from my babies, sleeping in a hotel bed, and let my business go unattended to for the day. He said, and the older you get, the higher that will go because you don't want to leave home. And when your kids are in different seasons, the higher it'll go because you won't want to miss. Like I have a daughter that performs, and so I don't miss an opening weekend. I'm not only really hard to get on those weekends, I'm very expensive because if I come do it, you're flying me back for at least one of the shows. Like it's a really tight schedule. So it's really totally entirely made up. That being said, if you're too cheap, people won't take you seriously. And if you're too much, they'll overthink it and they may go with somebody else. So there's that to keep in mind. If you have a book, you can charge more than if you don't have a book. If you have a name people recognize or you've been around, you can charge more than people that are just starting out. And this may be not your experience at all, but this is something I just shared with a client recently. I don't see any threshold difference between, well, it also depends who you're speaking for, like ministries or nonprofits or corporates. There's a different threshold. Your number one thing you need to know is there an item in the budget for what you talk about? You have to be findable and fundable. When the CEO and CFO are looking at their budget, do they find a line that says the happiness factor? Do they find a line that says, wellness? And they might have a wellness and health initiative, but you probably better frame it around retention and employee benefits. That's going to be more fundable than the happiness factor. So where are you findable and fundable? That'll help you know. I have not seen any booking difference between 1,500 and 5,000. As a matter of fact, I would say even if you're starting out, you probably get more at 5,000 because if you charge 1,500, they're not going to take you very seriously. Would you agree or disagree?
Oh, I totally agree. The 5K is totally the floor. And what's really funny about that, Carrie, 5K has been the floor for the last 20 years.
Yeah. COVID didn't do us any favors.
In 2004, to be taken seriously as a speaker, it had to be 4,500 5K. 2023, to be taken seriously, 4,500. And that's a minimum. That's a minimum wage.
Yeah.
That's a starting point.
That is speaker minimum wage because it's a lot, especially if you have another business, it costs you a lot to be gone.
Right.
And the older you get, I keep saying that, but it takes me longer to recover when I get home, especially if it's coast to coast. I'm in Texas, right in the middle, but coast to coast, it takes me a couple of days to kind of mentally bounce back. And I don't work well on the road. I don't have good clarity of thought on the road. I'm not one of those that can write books on the road or write in the airplanes. And I've just had to kind of wrap my brain around that. And international sounds glamorous, but holy smokes, it's a whole other thing and a whole other fee if it's even a place I want to go. If it's not a place I even want to go, you can't pay me enough. I mean, it really is made up. I would say, David, though, I really like price integrity, but I also know that a lot of people really like to negotiate. And so I would say for a beginning speaker, I might even practice like 7,500 so that you have room to say, oh, if you only have 5 in your budget, 5 plus travel expenses. I mean, just build your muscles up. My fees went 2,500 for one speech, one time, to 7,500 6 weeks later, one speech, one time, to 12,500 2 months later, one speech, one time, and then have been 15 and more since. Now, do I ever speak for less than that? Of course. It's like our friend Scott Stratton would say, I don't speak for a hamburger unless I do. And if it's in my town and I really have a heart for the cause, or I really am excited about the friend that asked me, sometimes I'll go speak for rubber chicken and broccoli, but most of the time I do not. But even then, it wouldn't be for free. There would be either some content or some pictures or some press or something that falls into the compensation levels there too. But speaker fees, I would say 7,500 so that then you can say, hey, my 7,500 fee includes up to half a day with me. I'll include the VIP lunch. I'll set up a book table. I'll even do a photo meet and greet, with your people. And that includes up to, a 90-minute session. Oh, well, how much would it be for you just to do 20 minutes? It's the same fee. 20 minutes to 90 minutes is the same. We could even break it up into 2 45-minute sessions as long as I can keep my flight the same. And then if they say, oh, our budget is only 5,000. Okay. Well, what of those benefits would you like to take away? Would you like to just do the one keynote then? Or would you like for me not to be at the VIP lunch or no meet and greet? Which of those things would you like to take away? 9 times out of 10, they'll find it because they don't like things to be taken away. I learned that in direct sales, my very first career. You put the whole set in their hands and then you say, which of those would you like to give back to me? Which of those?
I want to keep it all, Carrie. I want to keep it all.
And it's just psychology and helps them make the decision. If they really won't budge, then you have to decide price integrity. Okay, but I'll have to remove this benefit and, blah, blah, blah in order. And if they really won't do that, then you have to be willing to say, then let me look and see who's in that price range with less experience that I can refer to you.
Yes.
Connie Podesta taught me that. You say, you have to know that for that price range, you're going to get less experience, less of several things, but let me look around and see who I can find so I can make a good recommendation to you.
Love that.
And
really,
then you're
really
a good guy either way, right?
Yes, for sure. Yes, I know. Terrific episode here, but have you seen our latest web training? Oh my goodness, pop over there right now, or as soon as you're done listening to this episode, it's doitmarketing.com/webinar. See you over there. Back to the good stuff. So I have to ask you this just because it's, again, another source of craziness.
Yeah.
Last question about pricing and fees and value and so forth. When we're selling coaching, we're selling consulting, it's, executive coaching, one-on-one mentoring. People have this notion that it's an hourly fee. And in my world, it's never an hourly fee.
Never.
Again, it's a value-based fee. What are some mistakes that you see, whether it's executive mentoring, group coaching, team coaching for a team of executives? What are some pricing snafus and some pricing guidelines?
Yeah. The housekeeper that cleans my parents' house, I don't pay her by the hour. I pay her for a clean house. The landscaping crew, I don't pay them by the hour. I pay them so that my parents have peace of mind. Their home looks the way that they want it to, and that I'm not having a whole equipment out there to do 7 acres, in their small town, Texas. I'm paying for an outcome. Everybody needs to write that down. That's the difference. Paying for an outcome. I don't care if they have 10 people on the team that clean the house or 10 people that do the landscaping. I don't care. I just want the outcome, and I'm going to pay the one set price for that. I feel very strongly that we should not be penalized for being efficient, effective, or having expertise. We should not. If I can help you come to that solution in 5 minutes, why do I owe you 54 minutes of my hour when I just solved it faster than somebody you'd be paying $20 an hour for? Hourly is for unskilled jobs. when people aren't good at managing their time and you have to hold them accountable. That's where the hourly wage came from. I'm going to pay you to be a warm body for this period of time. My youngest is a lifeguard and she makes like $15.50 an hour because she sits in a chair. They pay her for that time block for her eyes during that time block. People that pay me don't pay me for my hours. They pay me for my lifetime of expertise, my little black book of contacts, my skill set, my relationship, and they pay me to help with transformation. They're not paying me for hours. They're paying for transformation. What is that transformation worth to you? Not about what is my value as a coach. I don't even know that I could charge enough because I'm a really good coach. So you're not paying me to talk for 30 minutes. You're not paying me to do therapy or coaching with you for 45 minutes or consult. You're paying me for transformation. Now, what is that worth to you? What does it save you in your business? What does it deliver you from? And this is another little quotable that was the good thing Twitter did for speakers. I think it really helped us edit our message into quotables. Like I speak in tweets because of all that early Twitter training. So here's the quotable for that. Quit focusing on what you're delivering to them and price for what you're delivering them from.
Ooh, that's really good.
Right?
Deliverance.
Deliverance, not the movie, not the creepy movie with the banjos, but deliverance from what? What are you delivering them from? What is that worth to them? Not what is Carrie Wilkerson worth? You can't pay me what I'm worth. Not what is David worth? You can't pay David what he's worth. What is that transformation worth to you? What does it save you or bring you? That's pricing. And I never sell hourly coaching sessions. I'm trying to think if I've ever been paid hourly, David. My first job was bagging groceries on the Air Force Base, and we made tips only, which meant I was paid for results and hustle and relationship.
Yes.
Since I was 16 years old. So hourly is kind of dumb. I really hate it. I really hate it. And I don't keep track of my time. It's kind of insulting.
Yes.
Like if we can solve your issue in 5 minutes, don't you have work to do? You've heard me say this. Don't you guys have something to go implement? Why are you still here? This is not Netflix. I'm not here for your entertainment and enjoyment. We're solving a problem. Go implement it.
That's right.
So I think that that's a problem. Just get the hourly out of your head, because what happens is when you price hourly, you max how many clients you can take.
And you hit that ceiling pretty fast.
And it's exhausting. And your calendar will hate you and you will hate your calendar, no matter what your bank book says. So I like basing on transformations and outcomes instead. It may be, a couple of calls. It may be 6 weeks. It may be sessions up to this amount of time. It may be a, back and forth. I've done a lot of back and forth on, audio things or video things. There are lots of apps that can help with that. And that to me is the most effective laser coaching possible, because you get to the root of the thing instead of talking about your mama and them, right? I mean, now I'm a relationship person and I care about your people and I know about your people and I love Gracie's adventures. And we just celebrated her first birthday, if I'm correct.
Yes.
And so I love knowing those things, but we're not going to be knowing those things during our paid time.
Right.
We're going to be solving problems and transformation during our paid time, which is not time, it's transformation. So it's just a whole different way of thinking.
Can I brag on you for a little bit here as we're landing the plane?
Sure. I'll receive that.
As you know, my partner in crime and our COO, Charlie and I have been on multiple calls with you. I think one of the very first calls with you, it was 20 minutes and we ended the call and Charlie and I stayed on Zoom and we're both kind of like looking at each other, like just with this wide-eyed, like it was
Same thing
like,
happened after my first date with my husband.
This was in a good way though. And I said to Charlie, I said, that 20 minutes with Carrie was worth more than 6 months in this program that we were in years and years ago. And Charlie said, could not agree more. So literally 20 minutes with you, more value, more impact, more transformation than 6 months in this other group that we were a part of with coaching and, other kind of nonsense. And so you are totally right that people are paying for the advice and they're paying for access, right? Access to your brilliance And that is worth zillions. There is no multiplier on that. And that's how to think about pricing your coaching and consulting.
Well, so according to David, I just upped my rates to $60K per 20 minutes.
$60K per 20 minutes. That's it.
My new benchmark.
And believe me, if you can talk to someone for 20 minutes, you can talk to them for 30 minutes for $75K.
Yeah.
Well, after talking to you, my speaking fee just went up by $5,000. So there you go.
Good.
There you go.
That's perfect. And with speaking, and it is part of our job in sales to help the other person, the buyer, the solution seeker, going back to our other conversation, to help them find a solution that works for them. So I talked to an organization this week that was talking about 2 keynote speakers and 2 this and blah, blah, blah. And I kind of already knew where they were headed. That usually means a division in budget, right? And so when I told them my fee, I waited and I heard the almost audible gasp. And I said to them, and what I'm guessing is that's the event budget for speakers. Am I right? And they said, yes, actually it is. And I said, well, then that is so easily solved because I can do both sessions. And here's what that would look like, this and then that, and then they said, oh, it just hadn't occurred to them. I said, that way you get the speaker that you want, which is me. And then we do the panel at lunch with some of your local experts to fill in any cracks of what you think wasn't addressed by the market. And we do the motivational, more inspirational in the morning. We do the more tactical right after lunch. It's still within my half-day window. I could still get in and out super easily, and it's a win-win. And so sometimes our job in sales, that was not a negotiation. That was me saying, here's how we make that package work for you. And it's win-win for everybody. Yes. Instead of bringing in 2 low-budget speakers, why would you not bring in one killer one and use her twice? A lot of speakers wouldn't have done that, by the way. A lot of speakers are per keynote. And I'm just thinking, well, that's just kind of silly because my book table is set up all day and it just works. It just works. So that's one thing. Our role in sales is not to convince people to do something they don't want to do. It's to enable them to have the transformation that they want to have and to help them make a decision, decide if they're ready, and let them know if we are or are not the best fit for them. When we talked about indecision earlier, I'm from Texas. Some of y'all may have picked up on an accent, but armadillos get in trouble because they can't decide which way they're going. They second guess themselves and they end up flat in the road. And so don't be the armadillo, be the squirrel, dart and just make the decision. Sometimes you're right. Sometimes you're wrong. Sometimes it's fixable. So I would just say you have to decide to go all in. And also it's not your business what they think about you. As far as sales, it's, David, if we thought of sales more as diagnostics instead of sales, then we would feel more like a lawyer or a doctor or somebody that's prescribing something that helps. We so trust some of these professions to help us out of sticky situations, but then you put the word sales on it and it's weird. If you're being accused for a crime you did not commit, you don't ask the attorney how much he charges. You go look for the one that's good at getting people off for things that they did not commit, right?
Yes.
So I think it's a matter of changing how you think about yourself. That's the biggest block in sales. And then the other might be to have some criteria. It's like dating. If you'll settle for anything, that's what you're going to get. Anything. But if you know what your criteria are, then it's easier to see those. I see a lot of orange. Orange is my favorite color. So I see every orange car because I'm just kind of activated to look for them. We find what we're looking for. If you're looking for anybody, everybody, just strugglers and overwhelmed, exhausted people that just are desperate, you're going to attract a lot of desperate, broke people.
Yes.
If you are really looking for a certain high quality individual that is seeking transformation in the area of XYZ that you happen to be able to fill, then that's who you're going to be more attuned to. And I don't mean to be woo-woo about that. Yeah. It's just fact. It's just science.
Yeah. Well, you and I had a conversation about this because this is one of my problems is calling out to the wrong kind of prospect.
Yeah.
Right. And so your solution to that is talk about champagne problems to the champagne level prospects. Can you give us just a quick download on what talking champagne problems means to consultants and coaches and speakers?
Yeah. So the term champagne problems is actually from Taylor Swift lyric. My kids are big Swifties, by the way. I am one of the humans that got tickets to the concert. I bought 6 tickets so all 3 of my girls could take a +1. I was a big hero at Christmas. But champagne problems means like first world problems, right? Ugh, other people roll their eyes and goes, I wish I had that problem. Like, ugh. So speakers, we love to talk about the kind of champagne problems like when you're next on the upgrade list, but the flight list closes in 2 minutes, or you're second on the upgrade list and the flight closes in 2 minutes. Like, I'm not saying I want that guy in front of me to die or miss the connection, but I'm going to have to ride and coach all the way to so. And other people would go, oh, that's such a problem that you have to fly around the world. And, whereas as speakers, we're thinking we need to be rested and relaxed and have some time to work and catch up on all the things. Like for us, it's not a luxury. It really is like office space. So champagne problems are, what are the problems that your market wishes they had?
The top of your market, right? Like the best prospect.
The top of your market does have these problems. And what does everybody else wish that they had? So for instance, instead of people that are startups or scratching get started or overwhelmed or overworked or whatever, you might say instead, are you having trouble with your team, not owning their results so that you can't work on your own, executive issues, right? So who does that speak to? That speaks to somebody that has a team, not a one-person show.
Yeah.
It speaks to somebody that has a team that is having some drama. Here's one for coaches and consultants and people in your market. And that would be, are you maxed out on clients so that you don't know how to give yourself a raise without putting yourself 6 feet under, right? So you're maxed out on clients. That means you're not bringing in people who are saying, ooh, all I need is one more client. I need more clients. I need more clients, right? That's a whole different energy than people that are maxed out and need a shift, which by the way, is my favorite coaching I did with you, is how to shift when you have a great full roster of clients and shift to add an extra layer of income and more value for your people. So I would say that you have to talk to the people. Are you maxed out on speaking gigs and you can't take anymore? How to add income without impacting your calendar.
Yeah.
Or how to take less speaking gigs and have more income. How to take less speaking gigs and not affect your income. See, that's a problem that beginners would go, oh, I wish I had that problem. But people that are there, that are tired of packing their suitcase are like, yes, I'm tired. I'm weary and I have a full calendar. How could I do less and make more? So champagne problems, what are the level 7, 8, 9 problems that your market is dealing with? That's how you speak to that issue. So I have a client, a personal client that is a concierge for people, like a home concierge. And so some of her champagne marketing is like, if you can't have anybody over because you haven't had time to stock the fridge and you don't know what's in the wine cellar and, that kind of stuff. You're not sure if the dogs have been walked, that kind of a thing. Be ready spontaneously to entertain just at the drop of a hat when you walk in from the boardroom, So she's speaking to the level of people that want to walk into their home. Dean Jackson says he wants to walk into his home as if it was an Airbnb, fully stocked, all the amenities, doesn't want to have to even reach for anything. It doesn't want to be out, doesn't want to keep a grocery list, wants it to magically appear. The magically filling refrigerator, I think is one of his requirements. Yeah. So how do you speak to the top tier of your market to attract better people? Because will the basic startups, starters, strugglers still come? Some will, but the ones that come will be the ones that aren't afraid of a challenge. Whereas if you keep saying how to get your next client, how to, whatever that basic step is, your top tier people don't want to hear that. They're deaf to that. They don't hear it. They don't want it. And they're not going to reach down to see if they can dig through the trash barrel for the one good piece of candy. They're just not. Yeah. So I would say, make sure you're addressing your champagne problems and talking to the market with money. They have to have a findable budget item for you. So Jim Cox, who's a mutual friend of ours from a program, Jim was really struggling with some of his market. And we just tweaked his languaging a little bit to say, are you looking to transition from your corporate job to doing this without filling up your entire weekends in the meantime? Instead of, are you looking to start a blah, blah, blah? So before he was attracting a lot of Oprah watchers, couch sitters, people, collecting checks that weren't driven or motivated. Instead, he overnight started attracting people that had jobs. Well, if they had jobs, guess what? They could afford him.
Yeah.
And if they had jobs, corporate jobs, they probably had some good time management skills and they were used to balancing other things. And because he set the expectation for some weekend time, but not your whole weekend, he knew they had some hustle too. So sometimes our languaging and our not sometimes, always our languaging and our messaging matters. My marketing as a speaker now, and I'm a very passive speaker marketer because I don't want to be gone a lot, is Carrie Wilkerson specializes in high energy mega events. And all my photos have 10,000 people or more in them. Now, do smaller events sometimes reach out? Yep. But guess what kind of budget they assume they need to have? A mega budget.
Yes. I love that so much. Wow.
You don't see any pictures online of me around a boardroom table with people. You just don't, because it's not my favorite.
How about the exit sign behind you? Do you have the exit sign behind you?
It's like I have those, but they're not online anywhere. Or the luncheon, like the luncheon speech. You don't see me publishing those online either because I have a clause. I don't want to speak over clanking forks and knives. It's not good for my throat. It's not good for audience attention. And so my marketing is champagne marketing. Carrie Wilkerson specializes in high energy mega events. My goal is to make the event planner a freaking hero. That's the whole USP for me.
I love that so much. We could keep talking all day, but I got to get you back to your empire. Tell people how they can get connected and stay connected to more Carrie Wilkerson mojo, links, resources. These will all be in the show notes. Where can we send people?
Yeah, I have a good friend that I've known for 30 years. And her little slogan is everybody needs more Carrie in their life.
Totally agree.
Carrie in their life. So on Facebook, I'm Carrie Wilkerson. You can just search me and you'll find me. I am Carrie Wilkerson on every social platform. I am most engaged on Instagram and Facebook now. I am not very engaged on the others. You're going to put the links in the show notes, but if you go to carriewilkerson.com/links, it'll take you to all my freebies and goodies and downloads and videos and all those kind of things. You can just do a little Carrie binging if you want.
Awesome. All of those resources and Carrie's social media and all of her whole empire, and eventually the book trilogy as well.
The trilogy is coming out soon.
So we got to put the links in there for the trilogy directly under this episode at bestsellingshow.com. Carrie Wilkerson, you're such a rock star. You're such a great friend and a great mentor. I appreciate you.
I appreciate you. And give Gracie a big hug from Aunt Barefoot. How about that?
Totally will do.
All right. We'll talk soon. Thanks, David.
And that wraps up another episode of The Selling Show. Hey, tell you what, if you like us, rate us and review us on Apple Podcasts, subscribe, tell a friend, go grab the notes and downloads and extras at thesellingshow.com. See you next time.